Welcome to Living a Sex Positive Life, where we can guarantee the topic will be about sex. We'll talk about the good and the bad, the health and healing benefits, the adventures, the relationships, as well as the crimes and the tragedies. Our mission is to educate, entertain, and just talk about that touchy subject that affects us all, sex. Now here's your host, Angelique Luna.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is Angelique Luna. I'm here with my co host, my hubby, John
Hello,
Luna.
everybody.
And tonight is a special night. We have our first guest. It is Woody Woodsman from KinkyCast.com. It's a podcast that everything you ever wanted to know about kink and BDSM in an educational and entertaining manner. I definitely suggest you guys check it out. It's available on all cloud-based podcasting systems. So as always, my favorite's iTunes there because it's just easy to download and go. But welcome, Woody, to our show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I feel honored.
Yes, you popped our cherry for being our first guest. I love it.
Oh, I feel so special.
So talk about KinkyCast and how it came to be. How you birthed it. A little bit of history.
Let's see, it birthed Breach, but we got it turned around. I have been in the scene for over 20 years. And through the different communities that I've been literally worldwide, I decided it was time to pay back for all the things that the communities have given me. And I teamed up with another kinky person with 20 plus years, and that's the Beast. And so if you listen to the Kinky Cast, it is Woody and the Beast usually. The Beast is under the weather tonight. But we put this thing together literally in 10 days. We were at a party. It was actually his birthday party, and we got to talking about it. And I said, let's do this thing. And that was on the 20th of January 3 years ago. And on February 1st, we rolled out our first episode, and it was rough, to say the least. It's still out there, and you can go to our website and hear it, unfortunately, at KinkyCast.com. We have an
awesome.
archive. We have an archive that goes back, the 3 years to February 1st, 2014, I guess that. Oh, boy, I can't believe it. But when you hear that first one, it was we didn't really know what we were doing, and so we just opened a mic and talked about things, and we decided we were going to be kind of along the lines of what Dan Savage is, and a kinkier version of his Lovecast. And we found out that people were more interested in long form, and they wanted to be a little more in depth on subjects. And so quickly we went from a reading Dear Abby letters to interviewing people. And so we went through lots of changes. And in the early days, and I'm sure John will appreciate this, we were pretty much hosting our own site and dealing with the audio load and all that until we had John Baku on of FetLife. And he posted to his 27,000 friends that he was on the KinkyCast. Boom.
I bet that launched you.
The servers literally went offline. I got a call from my data center and said, what are you doing? And we were down for a couple days trying to recover from that. So after that, we went to a streaming hosting service, and they guaranteed unlimited bandwidth. And I said, okay, I'll bite. And it has been rock solid ever since, thank goodness. So we encourage people to come by KinkyCast.com because that is where we have the show pages, and we show the last 5 shows on the front page. Plus, we have a listing down the side of the site where you can read the synopsis and click and hear right from there. The show is intended to be viewable easily on a mobile phone device, smartphone, and so that you could click on it, listen to it when you're in the car, on headphones, through Bluetooth links in the car, that sort of thing. It works really well, and it's solid. If you choose to go iTunes or you choose to go SoundCloud, Stitcher, uh, any number of there is 36 different ones carrying us, and our second largest audience is in Russia.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a huge market there. Then followed by Canada, and then England, and then Australia. But the Russia has a very big following there. It's they turn in big numbers every week.
I've spent a lot of time in Canada, and it does. Canada being number 2 doesn't surprise me, but I will say Russia. It sounds like it does surprise me, but it shouldn't.
But how do they communicate their questions? I mean, do they do a translator or does it translate properly?
It is the web page is translated by the distributors there, and but they don't translate the cast itself, and so people have to listen in English, and it seems to work. So it's pretty cool.
Fantastic!
And
Our first
we
guest
looked
is a
at
global celebrity.
Yeah.
I feel more
Wow.
special now.
Well, we're in 152 countries,
Wow.
and when I started looking at some of the countries and the names, and some of them are in the kind of dangerous zone of, this talking about sex isn't allowed in those countries. And
Right.
so it's a little terrifying at times.
Yeah, that is because then I'm kind of concerned for the people who are listening because if they do get caught, there might be a harsh punishment depending on the country what they're listening to. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, you're doing a community service by educating, but they're taking a risk in their own lives trying to be educated.
Well, you're very right here, and that is something that does concern me. Yes, we want to get our message out because we believe that being open sexually is so important to being healthy. There are so many people that go around that suppress their sexuality, that do not communicate, or they openly lie about it. And we've always said honesty is how this thing works. And if you can't be honest with your partners, if you can't be honest with the community that supports you, then there is a big problem. And so in some countries, it is a big problem.
Right. And that, the honesty and the communication goes to any kind of lifestyle, whether it be vanilla or swinging poly or kink. I mean, that's one thing we always talk about on our podcast, that you have to be honest with yourself first off, know what you want, and be able to communicate and express that to your partner and vice versa.
It is very true. If you can't lay it out in a way that you are true to yourself, and I always say you got to be true to yourself first. Putting on a facade that is not yourself, going out and trying to fool people is not going to work long term. It's really going to bite you in the ass. So, people have to be authentic. They have to do a little retrospective into who they really are. And we encourage people to get counseling as necessary. And I know that you're active in that field. People have to reach inside to ask the hard questions. Because a lot of times people come into the scene and they say, well, I'm a dominant. How long have you been at this? 2 weeks. Okay. And you're 19 years old and you're a master. Mm-hmm. Well, and we encourage people, when you're coming in, do not identify. Just come in and have some fun, enjoy it, find out where you fit. And it can be a bit of a roller coaster ride and can be a lot of fun. But then all of a sudden you're going to start to find a groove and you go, yep, yeah, I'm a submissive, or yep, I'm a dominant. But don't make that judgment in advance, because you might be surprised. You come in being, I'm a macho dom, and in 2 years you go, but I love to have somebody work me over, So it's where I where I came from. I started in the scene in Amsterdam, And with language barriers and things like that being what they are, uh, I can't say that I was terribly open because it was hard to be open. My Dutch was not so good. And when I came into the scene in California, first came to the Los Angeles scene, and I have a mentor there, a lovely woman that has guided me through the lifestyle. And then moved to the scene in San Francisco area in the South Bay, San Jose. And a lot of the times I would hear in the dungeon that uh, men are closeted in the way they can't admit they're a switch because the women will disrespect them. And I found that very odd, but I saw it over and over again. And I talked to several women there that said, if you were a switch, I could never play with you. It's a little sad.
It is, and that's also similar to even the swinging lifestyle because I've been in the swinging lifestyle for over 20 years, and we both identify as bisexual. And for me, it's okay, it's accepted that I like both sex, but when it comes to John, they're like, oh no, I can't, play with you, I can't do that. So there's always some kind of discrimination going on in even the alternative lifestyles.
It's interesting to see prejudice
Mm-hmm.
in something that is so open or claims to be so open.
Right. And you being in the lifestyle for 20 plus years, what changes have you seen over the years?
The internet, you know,
Yeah.
when I started, first off, I was in Holland. And so I had just met some kinky people, and it was kind of big fun. Yeah, they have sex clubs over there, which are pretty amazing. They're kind of a swinger club, but they're not designed just for swinging. You can go there. They have light BDSM and all this, and so I would go there, and I met some people. They say, you want to get serious about this, and I'm going, sure. And they invited me to some places, and I went to an amazing party in a barn with a hayloft and everything. And they had these crosses set up and horses everywhere. I mean the wooden kind, and it was so cool. And I met a submissive there, and we had great fun. And I was as green as it could be. I didn't know what I was doing, so the first thing I did is I started reading, and you know, every book I could get, I read, and I traveled a lot. And so when I would go to Los Angeles, my mentor there says, you need to go to classes. And there was classes almost every night of the week in Los Angeles. And
Mm-hmm.
so we would go, and I learned about all kinds of stuff that I wasn't interested in. She says, learn it because you have to understand it, whether you like it or not. You may be in a scene where something's going wrong, and if you know about this, you'll know what the hazards can be, and you might be able to help. And sure enough, I was able to help on a branding scene that went very bad.
Ooh.
And it's the old thing: never close a circle.
Yep.
And this guy closed a circle, and a day later, the guy's going, my brand is just really hurting. And I looked at it and I go, oh, gangrene. And I said, you get down to the doctor right now because that is, you can lose your leg. And the skin died in the middle of the circle. You can't cut off the circulation to it. And so I learned that in the branding class. I'm not going to brand anybody. Nobody's going to brand me, but I learned something that I could carry on. So those are the important things. And also I say to submissives, go learn dominant stuff. Because when somebody's doing something to you, you want to know if they're doing it right. It's all about safety.
Yeah, and I think people often forget that as much as the person that you're trusting, you also want to know that they know their stuff and you know your stuff because sometimes the trust is not fully there. And that's hard sometimes for people. I know I've had situations that I hear what they're saying, but I see what they're doing, and I'm like, no, I don't think you have your shit together. But but it's good to know. Even like I said, I am taking the kink therapy certification with Patty Evans, who you had a couple weeks ago, and I am learning so much more about different subgroups of the kink community because I have been well versed. I'm very familiarized with the various different BDSM, poly, alternative lifestyle, LGBT, but just going more in depth, it's a lot to know.
And there's nuances within any of those categories.
Hmm.
And no person is 100% anything. And so you can say, they're 25% this and 30% that. And when you look at that, they become very fluid
Hmm.
in what they like. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But understanding it, especially as a counselor, where are they coming from? Why are they talking this way? Uh, why are they having trouble in a relationship? And, little things like honesty are probably the biggest thing. And we always say communicate, communicate, communicate.
Right,
If
and
you
also,
can't,
mhm.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was getting also clarifying definitions and what's your thoughts because you could say open and it could mean two different things just within your partnership.
Oh, yeah. If your partner, your full-time partner, is not 100% at speed with what's going on in your life and what your wants, desires, and all that are, it's not going to go well. I have a very understanding partner that understands who I am. We are a poly family. I have two other girls, and we all understand where we fit within the polycule, as they call it.
Mhm.
And that way, there's no surprises. As soon as there's surprises, that's when trust goes down and motives change, all that stuff.
Absolutely. One of the things you kind of touched on a little bit that I've experienced is that over time people definitely will change, not just in a regular relationship, but in a lifestyle. I have gone from being much more of a sub to more the other end of the spectrum, and I guess at this point I'm more of a switch between it. But in the beginning, going back 5, 7 years, I've never had any interest in being a dom,
Mhm.
and people will change in relationships, and that's something they need to learn to convey and obviously for your partner have the patience that they may turn into something you didn't expect to.
This is key. And understanding that you are a fluid human being is so important because what interests you today is not going to interest you tomorrow. Rewind your own life and say, back when I was 18, what was I interested in? Are you interested now at 35? That same thing, 45, 55? It's going to, your life has changed and your partners are going to change, whether they're full-time or part-time partners. Uh, it is going to be very fluid. I know what I want today and what I wanted when I started in the scene are completely different. Even though I pretty much stayed a dominant the whole time, my friends now say I'm more of a sensualist than a dominant.
That's
And
a
I
new
think
one.
that's true. Yeah. Uh, I am all about the touch, the feel, the connection, all that. Can I deliver a nice spanking? You bet your ass I can. But on the same token, I'm more about the connection than just being a sadist.
Interesting.
Now, when you mean connection, is that like an emotional connection or just kind of like a spiritual, intimate connection? Because I know sometimes emotions do cross over into the BDSM, when, say, like the partners are just, we're monogamous in the BDSM, that yes, we'll have play partners, but we're not emotionally attached to them. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense because coming from the swing scene where emotion is typically a barrier
Mm-hmm.
and falling in love with a swinging partner is not a good thing in the swing world, where in poly lifestyle, it's completely expected. And if you have a good placing with somebody and you guys really hit it off and there's chemistry and all that, there is falling in love is very much possible and even expected in some cases. And I have loving relationships with the people that I play with. I have some friendship relationships that are, very good friends. I love them as a friend. I have others that are more romantic love. But the fact is that I have connection with all of the people that I play with.
Mhm.
I'm not a good casual player. Tried it, didn't work.
Well, there are the casual players. There's the friends with benefits, and then there's the other end, which is, I would think, more towards poly. But they're just different levels of emotional investment
Yeah.
done with the act. And again, neither is right or wrong. Everyone just has their opinion and preference. Um, One of the things I wanted to touch that you mentioned before is being green. And I know a lot of listeners are new at that. And it is hard coming into a scene or coming into the lifestyle, whether it is poly or whether it is, and saying right off the bat, I know it all. No one does. And people need to be okay with the fact that they're coming into something where there is no handbook. It's fluid, things are going to change, and you're not going to know it all. So expect to learn, and honestly, depending on the scene, look for a mentor. Most people in the lifestyle I found are very eager to teach. They just need to be approached, need to be, what's the word? Courted, I guess is the best word for it.
Okay, now you bring that up, and I want to say a few words about that. Mentoring is a fine line, and there's A, somebody you want to play with, and B, somebody you want to learn from. They're two different people. And I often say choose a mentor that is the same sex. That way you don't want to go out and screw around with them, but you will learn from them. And you can ask questions. Why does this work? Why does that not work? Why did I see this reaction? And true mentoring, as opposed to playing until it ramps up to a high ebb. You find a play partner to do that with. Don't do that with your mentor, because you don't want to mix emotion with the learning process.
That's a great point. I never thought of it, but that is right on, because it is hard to learn from someone when they're talking and you're kind of getting all starry-eyed at them.
Oh, yeah. At that point, I can say, let's play, because it's not going to be a mentor thing, because I'm too starry-eyed. Every time I look at you, I want to do something fun. So it's a very important thing to really separate those two things. Learning is so important. And I can tell you, I've been to public play spaces now, and I don't want to sound like the old fart, even though I am. It's more like a party atmosphere than a dungeon used to be, where it is a respectful place, where you respected people's space, where you were quiet. You didn't have a party going on when somebody's trying to get into headspace. My full-time partner and we stopped going to public play spaces simply because the party atmosphere prevented her from going into headspace.
I can completely agree with that. One thing I found in my travels is the I guess the vibe of the clubs and the play places kind of changes with each city.
Mm-hmm. It
Because
does.
the city where we live in was doing great, 5 to 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, it just kind of died off, and we're really not sure what happened. It kind of took a...
Well, that's more with the swinging,
It did with the swinging community.
clubs there, but the BDSM has been going strong. I mean, you've interviewed Master Cecil of the Woodshed, and
Oh, yes.
the Woodshed's 9 years strong, and it's like I remember when it was only like 2 years old, and how we talked about all the nuance and the city codes and everything that he needed, and he's kept it a well-respected dungeon there.
And now,
Master Cecil is an exception, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He is very, very good at what he does.
well, now we've actually, and I haven't visited it yet, there's actually a second dungeon in our city, which we're not a huge city, but I'm very happy we have one. But as we've traveled to other cities, Miami has a very different feel, both swinging and just general polyamory and all that, than where we are. And I guess we've played a little bit, gone out to Tampa, and we didn't see a whole lot. We tried to do Vegas. I'm just curious on your thoughts, being the well-traveled
Connoisseur of dungeons.
that you are. What places did you like? What places didn't kind of work out?
I'm going to follow that up with an interesting observation. The scenes, and I'm using that plural, in any given city. You have the swingers, the kinksters, the gay audience, uh, maybe some splinter group off of one of those. Try putting them together in one play space and see what happens.
Oh, they get
Not
carnivorous.
well, they get carnivorous and they get bitchy and they get picky on each other and all of a sudden the swingers go, "Oh my God, you're hitting that woman like that! Oh, how can you do that?" I actually had somebody tell me that, and I'm going, "You're in my dungeon. You don't have to watch."
Yes,
And
never insult someone in their own home.
yeah, well, so what's interesting is Frolicon is coming up in in Atlanta, and this is the exception to what I just said. Every type of player, swinger, kinkster, poly, gamer, furry, little, uh, adult baby, they are all represented and they're all playing in the same dungeon at the same time.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's like the United Nations. We had the Frolicon episode on the KinkyCast, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Check that out. It's Pam, who is one of the owners of Frolicon, came on the show and talked about it. I've been to several Frolicons, and the KinkyCast is always on the floor. They're interviewing people and talking to the people that are giving classes, and it is such a wonderful time. I just love going to it because it is the crossing of all of these different lifestyles into a common place. You can't find it. In my city, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I can go down here, I can tell you where the LGBT crowd hangs out. I can tell you where the kinksters hang out. I can tell you where the swingers hang out. And that's three separate places that never mix.
I completely agree with you because I was in a room once with, again, an open relationship type group of people, and somehow the conversation went, well, I'm poly, but I don't get how swingers just sleep and walk away. I can never do that. And the swingers are like, well, I don't understand how you can have an emotional connection to multiple people.
Right.
And after about 10 minutes, I'm like, I need to leave before this gets really ugly.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, and it's just funny how once you start throwing in the gay, the LGBT, the bisexual community in there, all these minority groups that are prosecuted almost, or at least have been prosecuted by mainstream society, once you get them together, they turn on each other, and I never understood why.
Well, it is interesting. And I asked that question of Guy Baldwin, who is a gay rights leader. He has been at it for many, many years out in Los Angeles. Check out the Guy Baldwin episode on KinkyCast. I asked him the question. I said, here we are in the 50 Shades days. This was the book, not the movie back then. And, how do you feel about all these newbies coming in to your gay clubs, checking them out and all that sort of stuff? And he says, we've lost the little exclusive thing that we had. We had this corner of society that was shunned by mainstream. We were off. We had our thing. It was exciting. It was underground. And now it's just mainstream. We lost, the little seed of special.
I can see that.
I'm going, wow, I never thought about it that way. But then you could take any of these subgroups that we talked about and say pretty much the same thing, because now we have these gawkers that come in and they're looking around going, yeah, well, yeah, okay, yeah. I'll go to the swing bar tonight, the BDSM club tomorrow night. And, yeah, I'm a little bit bi. I'll go over and check out the gay guys. You do that, the gay guys are going to look at you like you got something going on. You're like, what's wrong with you?
Oh, we
You
know
know?
that experience very well.
Yeah. Well, and this is it. So, any newbie that's coming into quote the scene, the broad scene, whatever it is, do your homework. Don't embarrass yourself because it could get really ugly.
And there
And
is so much out there right now. We were having a conversation just before we were broadcasting, and Angelique was saying how she used to use the penny saver.
Pennywise newspaper to find a
yes.
date for the swingers. So yes, the way back in the day, all those code words.
Okay.
I didn't know. Did you guys do that with the BDSM community? Because I only knew it more with the swinging community.
That was more swinger community
Okay.
oriented. The BDSM community was more underground than that. Swingers were always more publicly visible than we were,
Mm-hmm.
which I find interesting because, the churches were against all of us anyway. So,
True.
welcome to the South. Uh, yeah, we're in the buckle of the Bible Belt up here.
Oh, so are
Uh,
we. We're down in Central Florida in
yeah.
Orlando. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
we feel your pain.
Yes.
We kind of got a doubly. We not only have the buckle of the Bible Belt, but then we're in the shadow of the rat. The Disney, for that matter.
Okay. Yeah. I know a lot of Disney employees that are really kinky.
Oh yeah, it's all over the place. I mean, they've been kinky since day one. I used to work for the company back in '94 for 15 years, and yeah, I saw, various different shades of freak.
Yeah, just watch their cartoon with a kinky aspect, and they get away with stuff that we never dreamed they could pull off. And yeah,
I know,
all the cartoons we watched as a kid, watch them now and think kinky, and it's a different world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, no one could really find a copy of Song of the South. I mean, how
Yeah,
yeah, that has
yeah.
everything in there.
But we're still
Oh yeah.
keeping our eye open for the big mermaid poster with the penis and the towers in the background.
Well, see, I have the original VHS copy of that has the penis in the tower. So I'm not selling that. I'm not getting rid of that because I'm like, no, that's precious to me.
Yeah, it's the art forms that were snuck into the public release was very interesting. And then they were called out, and of course Disney had to go back and fix them so that they weren't called complete perverts. But
Right, but that was because of a disgruntled employee. That's how that happened with the castle.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
it was an animator that got let go before its time, and he's like, "What? I just dedicated my whole life to this, and you did what?" It's like, "Oh, let me take care of you, Disney."
Hmm.
I got too many Disney stories on that.
Oh yes, well, and it's the same at other studios too. I know people at Warner Brothers that were animating for Bugs Bunny,
Hmm.
and they pulled off some unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, if you've really studied the history of what do you call it, animation from the beginning, a lot of the sexual innuendos, and even in the comic books, it's been out there. It's just I don't know if we were naive back then, or we just kind of chuckled and laughed and kept it in the closet as our fun little moments.
Well, it's funny that we're looking at animation this way because the sexual world, and that is all of the things that we're talking about, have led technology for the last 100 years. And if you look at the movie business and early animation, some of the very first animation were porno flicks, cartoon porno flicks. And they used the medium before it was popular for other things. Look at remember when the CD-ROM first came out? You're too young for that.
Oh no, no, no! I remember.
When it first came out, it was pretty much a toy until the porn industry jumped on it and had these interactive movies that you could watch on your computer, and they were porn flicks. They put so much money into the technology that it moved technology along. And so it's kind of interesting when you look back at that. I have been involved in the motion picture business for quite a number of years. And when I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in Northridge, which is the next town over from Chatsworth, which is the porn capital of the world. Very interesting down there.
I bet you have lots of stories, but go on.
Oh, oh yes, I even produced one, so it was fun. The Girls of 976. If you ever anybody sees a copy of that one, so yes, the producer's Giuseppe on that one. That would be me.
Awesome.
Awesome there. But yeah, even Laserdisc. I remember when Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out, we
Yep.
discovered that the stroller scene, you look up and you saw everything perfectly clear.
Well, yes, and there were several other scenes, and there were what they call Easter eggs in there. Once you fast forward and rewind a certain speed in certain sections, you would find some very, very heavy porn related stuff in there. So, and Easter eggs have been around for a long time. You know, you look at the games that are out nowadays. You know, you go to the credits and you click on some name and you push some button, and all of a sudden the whole thing unrolls, and it's a whole different thing. It's been around for a long time, but you know, technology, as I say, is really been advanced by the kinksters of the world, because it's, you know, it can be a little boring just sitting there animating a rat, as you say, without your mind wandering off into the gutter somewhere like mine does continuously.
Not a bad place to be sometimes. But you're
Yeah,
definitely right, because the internet, especially broadband itself, came about because of porn, because people wanted to enjoy porn without having to go and embarrassingly buy or rent a VHS and, you know, go through that and be seen in this part of town, whatever that may be. But it's really funny. It's porn drove broadband for us to get the big speeds we have now, where we can watch video, which means there was money behind it, and people were spending a lot of money on this porn to get it through. And then, of course, eventually Netflix and ABC and everyone else jumped on it. And, you know, now to find porn, it's not something you even pay for. I mean, you can if you want something specific, or you like a particular actress or whatever like that, but there's so much.
You go to FetLife, and everything you ever wanted is there.
Oh, FetLife is a wonderful resource to find out anything.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, also with the internet, it's helped tremendously a lot of introverts. I mean, how many shy people will not talk to anybody, and now just being anonymous, and they could just talk about anything and everything freely, because no one's really going to find them unless, you know, there's a cyber forensic guy or girl looking them. But at least they're able to express their fantasies, their dreams, and find other like-minded people, even though if it's like 10,000 miles away from their hometown. And I think that's been an amazing thing. You know, right now, even with the internet, it does help me with coaching clients and helping those, because, you know, it could be someone in North Dakota who wants to talk to somebody who understands their alternative lifestyle.
Well, it's absolutely true, and there's a little negative side to that, and that's when the trolls come out. The being anonymous has its pluses and minuses. First off, you can go out and you can insult people, and this is not good. There are people that have issues. They're exposing themselves, and I'm not just saying in pictures. They're exposing in writing and other places. They're bearing their soul, and here comes some troll and judges them and writes nasty things to them. Because of the anonymity of the net. And so be careful when you're out there. And then, you know, it's also interesting that bullies can type in capital letters and be really tough.
Yeah, tough across the internet is not tough. It's just mean.
Right, but it's been going on for centuries. The bullying, the haters, the trolls. I mean, it's just been done differently.
It's the modern version of it.
Yeah, it is, because I even remember back in the day, you know, we're talking pre-internet, just even writing on the bathroom walls and saying so-and-so is such a slut, or she's a cunt, or, you know, spreading all these rumors.
For a good time call.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's still just trying to re-educate people how to handle trolls and haters. And I mean, celebrities have been going through it for dawn of time. I mean, we're talking theater days of Greeks and Romans all the way till today. And it's just with technology has changed the way how we treat each other.
Well, we need to treat each other nicer just in general because we are a subculture.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people that would like to crush us in general. But when you think about it, and I always say this to boost our numbers, if you've ever had sex with somebody and you blindfolded them with a silk scarf, you're kinky. You're one of us. So that's a lot of you out there.
Well, a lot of people are, but will never admit it.
Right, but with
And
50 Shades, they made it acceptable to use that tie to tie you up, or the Kegel balls and things like that. It's like, dude, if you use any kind of accessory, as I would like to say it, you're kinky.
in some manner, yes, you are.
Yeah.
And, let's just get over it. The fact is that so many people are just that. And accept it, understand it. And that's another thing where being a counselor is people are confused and they don't know what to think. Sit down with a counselor and ask him about it. Why do I feel this way? I'm sure that you'd be glad to help them on that one.
Oh, yeah. One of the things I always tell a lot of my clients is like, what makes you feel normal? And once they defined it, I'm like, great, now what's your problem? Because society doesn't say it's normal, that's society's issue. It's like, own your own self, own what you define as your normality and what makes you happy. Because once you kind of establish that foundation, you could continue and conquer the world and just say, hey, I'm sorry I don't fit your mold. I'm sorry I'm not like you, but this is what makes me happy. And there are others that enjoy the same thing.
Well, your normal and my normal are completely different things. And
Mm-hmm.
especially the normal of the person that's judging me is something completely different. So embrace yourself, embrace the community, protect the community, stand up for what's right. And when I say right, it's our rights to be kinky.
Absolutely.
And
I like that.
those rights are going to be challenged here in the next years. And so we need to stand up. At the end of the year, we had Susan Wright from the National Coalition of Sexual Freedom on
Mm-hmm.
to talk about sex and politics. Interesting show. So um, we're in for a rough ride as Kinksters,
Mm-hmm.
but let's band together and be strong together because that's the only way we're going to get through.
Right. And also don't be afraid to ask for help and reach out to other Kingsters, to say, hey, I'm having this challenge, walk me through it, or let's go talk about it or something. Because, trying to solve your own Kingster problem sometimes is not the world's greatest, but, thanks to the internet, thanks to books and podcasts like yours, there are resources to reach out and say, hey, help me out here.
Well, and the KinkyCast is all about just that. We are a educational resource that has an entertainment factor to it. We're not trying to bore anybody with a bunch of facts and quote training. And so we try to dwell into the journey. How did this person come into the lifestyle? Because people are trying to relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I feel this way? Oh, this person feels the same way. And so it gives you something to relate to. So on the main page of kinkycast.com is a search engine. And just type in what you're interested in, whatever the kink, whatever it is, and the show that's related to that subject will pop up. And just click on that, and then you can go check out the show page. We have a show page for each and every show of the 161 shows that we've published that has a synopsis of what went on there. It has links to the people that are talking, what they're talking about. And so you can really do some real research using that. The search engine is really a powerful tool to refine what you're looking for.
Well, that last episode you just mentioned about kink having, or people in kink having a rough future. Was that, you already recorded that one?
Right there.
Yes, that aired in December. That was our Christmas show. Oh boy.
We definitely need to catch up on that one because over the weekend I had an interesting conversation with a lawyer. And I'm like, it was in a kink community, and I'm like, I just got to ask this question out because if you're gay and a company fires you or something like that because you're gay, there's laws that protect you. And
Yes.
if it's because you're sick or because your skin color is different, there's laws to protect you. And I said, well, what if you get fired because you come out kinky?
There is no law to protect you.
Nothing. You are completely out there on your own with no legal protection, and that is amazing that in the 21st century we still have nothing in that aspect of it, legalities.
It is scary, but true. And in many states, what we do is considered illegal.
Yeah.
Think about it. You cannot consent to your own battery.
Never thought of it that way.
It's against the law. And so when we look at it that way, we have to be a little bit underground. Now, I will tell you that a lot of the police departments are trained to understand the difference between consensual and non-consensual. When there's domestic violence, that is a police matter. When you're having a play party and everybody's smiling / crying and having a great time, then that is not something for the police to come into. We have been trying to put together an episode for some time about when the police knock, and that fell through the cracks. I'm going to have to get it going again. If the police come to your door and knock when you're having a wonderful scene, what do? We have a couple lawyer shows. We had Lady Steele on, and we talked about that a little bit. I'd like to get a real police officer on and talk about it. And so I will work on that for the future.
What I find funny is the law enforcement community in general is some of the kinkiest people I have ever met.
Oh, yes. And they get it. It's not like you're trying to pull something off on them. And it's always funny when something goes wrong in a scene and you do have to go to the hospital, unfortunately. And you go in and you say, she fell off a ladder. No. They look at it and they go, we know what those, there's ligature marks. There's, all this. We know what you're doing. You can't pull it off on a trained medical professional. By the way, medical professionals are the kinkiest group I've ever met.
Oh, I got a story I got to tell right now.
Okay.
First 2 years I'm in swinging. And this is like my third actual it wasn't a private party. It was a
hotel party. I was supposed to go, but I didn't go, and you were there. Mm-hmm. And what happened was someone had a little bit of the snack mix, didn't realize there were nuts in there, and the person was allergic to the nuts. So this is at a swinging play party, and they had to call the paramedics and try to get everyone as closely as dressed as possible as the paramedics are coming in to take care of the person with the allergic reaction to peanuts.
Now, 2 paramedics showed up, a man and a woman, and the woman was probably in her 30s. But from my point of view, that guy looked like he was 12. And very, very young look. And they came in, and he's trying to be professional. And they're trying to do it and trying to do this. And you just see him, looking around, and she's, snapping her fingers, focus, sweetie. And everything worked out. The woman ended up being fine. I think she got a shot of epinephrine or something.
Yeah, her EpiPen.
And that was the slowest exit I had ever seen of the paramedics. They must have had a slow night because they were really trying to spend as much time as possible. And they got several invitations of, do you want to do a little role play? And I think that scared the young one. But the woman was definitely probably okay with it, but she was on duty.
Yeah, damn the luck to be on duty, huh? But I know doctors, nurses, Superior Court judges, lawyers. There's a bunch of kinky people out there.
And we all keep it secret.
You know what's really interesting? The higher authority the person is, like mayors and chief police and all that, the more submissive they are.
Yes, that is very true. I rarely know anyone in higher authority that is a dom. It's rare to find. but a lot of my interactions, they have been very submissive. And I kind of went, huh, why? And I actually went to Sex Down South in Atlanta in October and listened to Orpheus Black give a presentation. And the way he presented it, everything clicked. It was like they just don't want to make any decisions. They don't want to be in charge. I mean, because that's all they do 24/7. And then those few moments in that scene, they were just like in heaven.
When they are off, they are off. And they turn themselves over to a dominant and they say, drive the bus. And it's really interesting to see that. And a lot of times, this is where the pro shops really come in, the professional DOMs that are out there. A judge will come in and turn themselves in and say, take me on a scene. And they'll go on this wonderful flying ride. They'll come back down to earth, put their black robe back on, and go back to work. And it's just like a prostitute. They're paid to leave, and then they're out of your life. Instead of getting mixed up with a mistress, whatever, that is permanently attached to your life. So the money is to make them leave.
Because there's always someone else willing to come and stay.
Yes. So
I always viewed it as, when you were asked as a child if you could be anyone, who could it be? And if you say myself, that's kind of boring. That's what it's all role play. And if you're going to go role play, you want to be something other than yourself. You want something other than what you do in your day job. And usually it can be completely opposite. So we find a lot of, like I said, judges that want to be subs. I've also found some great housewives that you put a flogger in their hand and they think they're Darth Vader.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Well, they run a house, a pretty tight ship there, So.
Absolutely.
Excellent there. Well, thank you, Woody, for being on our show. We appreciate you popping our cherry. Please tell our audience members where they can find you, social media, website.
Okay. The first place is KinkyCast.com, and that is our homepage where we live all the time. There is all of the podcast distributors out there that you can find our cast on if you want to subscribe. iTunes, SoundCloud, and many other ones. We are on FetLife and just under KinkyCast. We are on Facebook as KinkyCast. And I am on Facebook as Woody Pine. I had to change my name from Woodsman. They didn't like it, so I thought I'd choose another wood. So go ahead and friend me out there on any of those. We're certainly glad to hear from our listeners. And if you have a subject, we are all ears. We do have a delay from the time that we record to the time that we play. We're running about a month and a half because we have to do a lot of things. We clean up our show. We're very proud of our audio usually, and so we go through and we edit carefully and we make sure that the words are as clear as possible so that everything sounds good. And we also do a lot of fact checking, and we make sure that the links are all there. And so when you go to the show page, it's a complete story. So, but anytime you want to hear something, give us some time. We got to research it in advance. We got to find the people. We got to get the people to say, yes, I'd like to be on the show. And sometimes they get cold feet. And so as your podcast comes along, it's going to be interesting when you're ready to go and all of a sudden the guest goes and clams up. And so sometimes the show doesn't happen. So we have a backlog to make sure that we can get through nights when shows cancel and things like that. So it's been an interesting ride understanding how podcasts work and feeding the monster, because it's a continuous job. I was actually foolish enough to start a second podcast called the Poly Podcast, which got out 6 episodes, I think, and died a painful death because there's just not enough hours in the day to run separate shows. And it was literally ate me alive. And so we've merged the Poly side back into the KinkyCast. And we have a number of interesting shows coming up that are dealing in the poly lifestyle.
Good to hear. Thanks. By the way, thank you very much. Your stories have been inspiring, and hopefully we will beat you in 3 years and look back on our 8th episode when we had our first guest.
Well, I want to come back then and see how you're doing.
Absolutely. It would be great. And hopefully by then I will be finally certified. Patty Evans does send her regards and love to you, just to make sure that we keep on with the community. Giving back to the community is definitely our number one priority here in Central Florida. And I know myself, because I definitely want to make sure that everyone does have a sex positive life going on, because there's no reason to deny you that. But we will see in a couple more episodes how things go, and hopefully we get as high tech as you when it comes to our podcasting. We're proud of our beginnings here, but I'm looking forward to being on your show in a couple of weeks. So
that's right. You're coming back, and we're going to talk about all kinds of fun things. So.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for listening. You could find us on Living a Sex Positive Life on Facebook, also on various different podcast cloud-based. iTunes and Spreaker is our main one, Living a Sex Positive Life, and blog. And you could find me everywhere on social media as Miss Angelique Luna.
And I like to hang out in the Twitter world. That's the best place to get in touch with me as John C, the letter C, Luna. So hit me up with any type of questions, comments. Just say hi. And we're looking forward to bringing you some great new topics in the future and some great shows.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Woody, for being here. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.